him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house.
The pay differential never seems to close, and the World Economic Forum found that if we continue at our current pace, it will take 100 years to close the global gender gap. So we literally cannot do that long.
They're not afraid of four musicians. They're afraid of you.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It looks like you get to see Hanna's head tonight.
Whoa.
I don't know where my head went. There it is. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have an amazing episode planned for you. Essentially, tonight we're going to look at Michigan and determine, is Michigan as guilty as Canada is when it comes to murdering Indigenous children? Don't know.
No.
Stay tuned to find out.
I don't think this is a competition anybody wants to win.
No, I don't.
I mean,
Also-
except for bad people would want to win.
Also, tonight we are going to be talking about the Olympics, my distaste for Olympics, but the one little gold nugget that I found in the Olympics, we're going to be having that conversation. And we're going to talk a little bit about QAnon. I don't know how you say that. QAnon theory.
QAnon.
And why why somebody's father is a QAnon supporter and doesn't believe that his son, the Parkland school shooting survivor, actually was there. With that being said, let's bring in our co-host. Welcome to the show, Mr. Buddy. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hansel. How are you tonight?
It's
Good.
QAnon, and oh my god, it is a
No.
glorious
No,
glorious
that is gonna
rabbit
be-
hole.
That would be the best nan bread you ever had. It would be QAnon bread.
Oh, okay,
Well-
you've got me back in. Oh my god, I wish
Instead of cooking it on the inside of a kiln, they cook it on the outside of an AR-15, like Ted Cruz's machine gun bacon.
Oh,
yeah.
man,
Anyways,
that's remarkable. Oh,
so gentlemen, good
It-
week. While I was not around at all. What did
Yeah,
you guys do? Anything good?
it was.
Anything good? Was it
Yeah,
Instagram
last week
friendly?
was a pretty busy week for me. We're prepping for vacation for next week, and we had the funeral that we went to, and then we had the nephew over, essentially, and the nephew was here, I don't know, all week with us, so that was a different experience. We got to hang out with him quite a bit. We painted and played a lot of Minecraft. So
Painted
he likes to paint and he loves Minecraft. He painted
Okay.
waterfalls and forests. That's what he painted.
Oh, like acrylic paints?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, my daughter has like a whole set of paints that everybody can use, and they're washable though. They're whatever the washable kind is, but they're fancy
Oh.
washable paints. So
That's cool.
I don't let-
Did you get any? What's the Bob guy with the curly hair? Any of his
Bob
YouTube
guy.
videos?
Oh,
going?
no, Bob Ross. No, I
Bob Ross,
worked
yeah.
most of the week, but when we painted, it was just kind of like, oh, here you go. Yeah. My daughter likes to paint, and none of them enjoy Bob Ross. They don't think it's
How?
that great, I guess. I don't know. I don't really either,
It's really chill.
personally.
how do you not love Bob Ross?
Dude,
mean,
Bob
I
Ross
don't.
is like taking a Xanax and grabbing a arts and crafts packet. Like he's
I
just
have-
like,
Okay,
So-
I will admit, I one night I happened to be a little intoxicated, and by intoxicated I mean with I injected a marijuana, if you will, and I was sitting there on my couch, and I was flipping through Netflix, and I was like, I've watched all of this, and none of it screams. And then Bob Ross came up, and I'm like, okay, let's watch this. I got about 10 minutes in before I couldn't go any further because I was just so overwhelmed by how pleasant he is. I was just like, oh my god, this man is so wholesome. What am I doing here? I am terrible, and this man is beautiful. And just listening to him brought me down out of that, and I was like, I think I need to go to bed now.
I spent about 25 hours in the captain's seat of my minivan. We went up to Michigan, back from Michigan, over to New York, around New York, museums. I slept in a refrigerated trailer in the hills, the backwood hilly area of New York, central New York, about 5 hours east of Cleveland. And it's like, it was a hippie commune growing vegetables in the nude like place, and like one of the women and her partner, I don't know if it's another woman or whatever, but they bought this commune that had lost its community, and they put this
You
reefer
mean they
trailer on it, and they have a
Jonesville themselves?
B2B.
Jonestown.
Not
Yeah, they just
James, not Jonestown, and this is like,
Oh, are you sure?
yes, I'm 100% positive because nobody asked me to wear, or nobody asked me to go to South Africa and drink the Kool-Aid with the
South
with the
America.
shotguns. But no, it was awesome. It was like in the woods, and we went to Corning, the Glass Museum, and then we went to Rochester that had this some private people bought a school downtown in this old city. Is the Alexander Hamilton School 31, and they have an animation studio on the first floor and lofts on the second floor, and all the second floor are classrooms. So you stayed in these giant classrooms with the creaky wood floors, and they still had the chalkboards on the wall. So I bought a pack of chalk, and the girls just colored on the walls the whole time. But it was just like, it was like this totally Pinteresty. My wife planned the whole thing, obviously, because an artist took us to a glass museum. We slept in the woods on our side of a mountain, and we stayed in a school with, like, everything was completely unique and interesting, and she spent a lot of time doing it. It was pretty amazing. So I don't know. It was and we were back on like Thursday or Friday, and so like we had a couple days of just doing stuff around the house. So like at the end of the vacation, I was like, I'm kind of tired. That's like, I was on the roof hanging over the edge, filling in holes and dealing with bees and chaos and stuff. So like today at work, it was stressful, but it's a different kind of stress. It's just like back to work as opposed to like, I don't know, dealing with tons of stuff. So it's like, I don't know. It was just one of those, like, going back to work things is fun, but it's just like, I don't know. That vacation was pretty cool. That was our big one for the year, though.
Well, it sounds like you get more vacations than I do. I don't get big and small vacations. We get a vacation if we're lucky.
That's the only one we've done. We took 2 days on a 3-day weekend, so I made a 3-day weekend 5 days, and we went camping though. So like, I mean, we just went and sat in the woods, and then we went to a couple places around. That was the only other one that we've done. It's just, I don't know. I think part of it is that when I do have some time off, we absolutely fill it with stuff. Like some people to use their time off to kind of like relax and like catch back up, and I just, my family just, we do tons of things. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's exhausting.
Like this weekend, my wife and I are going camping with my family. But my family has my uncle bought some land near this at this small burned down hamlet that was
Small
like
burned down hamlet, like you're buying.
It was deserted years ago, and because there was nobody living there to keep the buildings from crumbling in on themselves or becoming hazardous, they just burned a bunch of the buildings down. At least as far as I understand. There's still a couple of them up, like the old mechanic shop is still up, which is kind of neat. It's a dead zone, so there's next to no cell service, which is fantastic because work can't reach me there. And the first year I went out there was literally all work because we were relocating a permanent campsite from an old spot to this spot. And ever since, of course,
kind of stuff though.
Like the permanent campsites, like I kind of like it because it's a nice little home away from home. You can make it your own. And the fact that it's on their friend's land, and their friend built a retirement cabin there, so his wife lives there. He still works in the city, so he'll drive an hour to the city and an hour home. He loves it. It's just mostly work because my dad has been building this fancy outhouse, which we very fondly refer to as
style, son.
We fondly refer to it as La Chateau. My wife made a beautiful sign. She has that cricket thing, CRICUT. It's like the printer, but it cuts stuff out of like vinyl and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. She made a stencil out of it, and she made a sign that literally says La Chateau. And it's my dad loves it. My dad just loves my wife, and that kind of just made it even better. So helping like set that up, and
That's a
generally when
Pinterest
we go out
moment.
there,
You should definitely
oh,
put that on the website.
absolutely,
We'll
absolutely,
Insta that bad boy.
it's a lot of fun. And now that they have, it's more established. It's more of just a home away from home. We go out there, go out on the water, take the boat, go fishing a little bit, shit like that. It's fantastic. So it's not quite as much work as it used to be, but there's still a little bit of work, but not quite as much of a work vacation, which I tend to like.
That's cool.
Yeah, because that would not be super fun if all you did was, fix the house up.
Well, I find like doing work like that kind of cathartic and actually like I actually really enjoy doing it to the point where in the last year, pretty much all of the money that I've spent on myself has been buying me, my first set of drills, drill bits, tools, and shit like that.
You're talking my language.
Oh yeah. So it's fantastic.
So I'll tell you what. So
I just show up with Ryobi stuff all the time.
Here's the deal. You enjoy doing that stuff. I need work done on my house. I'll pay for your passport and put you up. You can come spend 2 weeks at my house on your vacation, and we can knock some shit out.
Your house, though, man.
It's not his. It's mine.
Not yours.
I'm not taking the vacation. I'm going to work during the day. I'm just going to kind of like direct Keith and be like, "This is what you got to do next. You want to learn how to bring more power into my house? I'd love you. You can run a 220 line into the house if you want."
I've learned so much more about home renovations in the last 2 years than I ever thought, and it's just mind blowing how simple it is and how much I kind of blew it up in my mind to make it seem like some great daunting task. Like, yeah, there are some things that I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna pay somebody to do that, because if they fuck it up, there's insurance. If I do, shit, that's more money for us to spend. And like I even do more of the maintenance on our friggin' cars. I'm waiting for a piece to come in so I can get my in-laws Nissan up and running again, and they can have a car and stop borrowing my wife's.
I can see the mustache forming on your lips right now.
Yeah. It's probably because I haven't shaved in a week, and I still have a 12-year-old's facial hair patterns.
Oh man, the flannel tattoo is growing on your chest as you speak.
How are you now?
All right. So for the first topic tonight, we are going to cover I'm a Parkland survivor. QAnon convinced my dad it was a hoax.
QAnon.
QAnon.
That's a good song.
It's like Baby Shark. You can mix those. By the way, you can mix those two together. You want to know what? Here you go. Here's the side tangent. You want to know what drives my family nuts? When I sing this, I sing Baby Shark. Do 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 do.
Oh no.
Oh, and they drive them insane. They're like, that's not the correct. That's not how the song goes, Dad. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. Yeah, come on.
That's awesome. That is seriously sadistic. Like,
Bravo.
to put the wrong Baby Shark in someone's head, that would make people shoot people at a school.
I hope not. You took that pretty dark, man. Damn. Anyway, so Vice has an article that came out now probably 2 weeks ago. Essentially, and this person's name is Bill, and it's fictitious, but essentially he's graduating in Parkland, Florida. He was part of the class of the survivors of the 2018 shooting. Now, if you don't know what the Parkland shooting was, by the way, essentially it was a crazy person that shot up and killed, I think, 28 people. Was it 28 or 17? I don't remember. But
17 when people were killed, 9 of whom were this kid's classmates.
Yeah.
And what it is essentially
elementary school.
Yeah. It was an elementary school. No.
Yeah.
No, this is not.
It's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
Yes.
When he was when this is taking place, but it was in the elementary school is where it happened.
But essentially, this is kind of the shooting that happened. There was a lot of controversy. People honestly thought this was like a fake. This was fake news that was going on. And the issue that a lot of people had is, and again, I don't know how much I believe QAnon exists per se, right? I mean, usually it's a loosely used term by a bunch of sadistic, malicious fuckers that are taking conspiracies to another level, and they use 4chan as their dark web site of choice. And essentially, Bill has had to live with this, and his father is openly telling him he believes that him and all the other students are just pawns in this game. Just pawns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? Like, your own son. Can you imagine? And I know, buddy, you don't have any kids, but Hannah, in like 10 years, can you imagine your daughter coming home and you'd be like, honey, I don't think that was real. I think they staged that. No, Dad, it was real. No, I'm pretty sure they staged that, Avalon. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. You know, can you imagine telling your own kid that? That's fucked up, man.
Oh, I may not have kids, but I could still, like, even just as the kid, I could imagine just the horror of being like, I went through this seriously traumatic event, only for people to look and be like, it didn't happen though, as though they're somehow smarter and were there and know that you were put in some sort of a simulation or whatever. Like, that's just absolute garbage. So this is the one where David Hogg, I don't know if you guys heard it from remember that? Yeah.
Hogg,
Hogg, Hogg. That's what I'm going with until I can be proved otherwise. Yeah, and he was getting harassed by Dinesh D'Souza, who's a garbage human being and is
he got out of jail? He's out of jail now?
Remarkably enough, which is weird given that the Republicans are really tough on crime.
Campaign finance.
Anyway,
no big deal, right?
Anyway, let's keep moving. That's a different topic.
Yeah. So anyways, but the one of the things about the 4chan stuff and this basic thing here is like the QAnon stuff. So like some background stuff. We have actually talked about the QAnon stuff, and there are some resources that we've talked about in the past. So if you look up, Cellar Door Skeptics and QAnon, you'll find some of the past shows that we had that we linked in our descriptions and all that kind of stuff in. And the guys that are the 4chan guys and everybody that are they're the guys that they basically took over the QAnon. So there was a QAnon user who essentially would show up, post these things, these prophetic things like Nostradamus, and then would disappear. Yeah, Q. And then as those things were going on, like you literally could hack this guy's password, and it had been done multiple times. They were using stupid passwords. It was simple. There's a whole backstory of it, and if I can find it again, I will. I'll share it on our main page on Facebook and Instagram. But in the end, these two guys who were in charge of 4chan and 8chan, they're scumbag idiots. And there was one other guy who was one of the co-creators of 4chan. He's this guy in his wheelchair. He was pushing back, saying, no, these guys are garbage. They took over this thing that I created, and they're horrible people. And he's been pushing back at them. And it's the owner, Jim Watkins is the guy's name. And they're in the Philippines. They've been hiding there. And not too long ago, the owner of 8chan was arrested for libel. And so, like, these guys who are in charge of the platforms for a lot of this QAnon stuff, they've been arrested over, libel cases and stuff like that. And so there's all kinds of new conspiracies and new things that are bubbling up, saying that the system and the deep state is coming down to get them. And QAnon is going to be, pushed into a new place and a new whatever. There's some insane things that are happening here. And so, like, all of this stuff though is that confirmation bias, and these dads and the people that are like this the guy in this website or in the Vice article, who's basically saying that his kid was in this and he had lost his whatever for like the traumatic aspect of the entire situation. Like, it's possible for you to lose sight of where you are and like get lost, even if you were not only like partially, but literally peripherally, one person away from someone who was affected by it. You can actually get lost inside of the conspiracy, which is insane. That's part of this that makes it so crazy, is that this guy is still so close, yet all of this confirmation bias and all of this dopamine surge that they're getting from some of this stuff on the internet can literally take over your mind if you let it. I don't know. After reading this, man, it just makes me even more skeptical of anything. I mean, we really need to be worried because this guy really went down a dark rabbit hole.
Well, what's really even more disturbing, right, is that a lot of this stuff started and became more popular because of somebody named Marjorie Taylor Greenan. And I'm going to call her Greenan because I like to just pronounce that like that. But essentially, she is an elected official. She was able to spout these things and still get elected. So we could talk all day long. You know, QAnon is crazy as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But what's worse, and this is what's really bad for this gentleman, is that his dad's buying into this stuff. And this is all that symptom of what we would call Trumpism, right?
Yep.
And we have people in Congress continuing to spread these false lies. So when people say, well, really, Trump was only so harmful to the nation, right? People mistake and misunderstand all the other issues that go along with some of this rhetoric that they continue to pose.
We have the appeals to experts, right? The appeal to an expert and something like that. So, like, people in this country who may not be as wildly educated and, you know, just openly skeptical and understanding of, like, what it means to look for evidence. These people in the general Midwest and places like that, they're seeing a person who is a elected official, and they make the assumption that elected officials are qualified to do their job. And I hate to break it to everyone, but a lot of these folks aren't. Just look at DeSantis in Florida. If Florida was its own country, the United States would probably have a restriction against travel to it. Like, there are some really dumb things that people do who are elected officials, and she is just as bad. Marjorie is just as bad as anybody else out there whose crazy aunt and uncle or crazy grandmother is just outside of her wits. But like, because she has a position, she automatically gets differential treatment, and people give her respect.
I just want to make a quick note. Part of the reason why Taylor Greene was able to be elected is because she ran unopposed. So if anybody is in need of a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, all isn't going to shit, I hope that's it, because she just was the only one. Kind of like the transgender sheriff who was running on the GOP ticket because nobody else wanted it. I think you remember her. Boys interviewed her a while back. So as long as, you know, nobody else is running, you can pretty much be Bernie Sanders and run unopposed on the GOP ticket. So you know, take that for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Look at your local elections, find out if the GOP needs somebody to represent them in your area, and be the only person to do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get out there, get involved.
In the chat, we had somebody. Hold on, I gotta make screen smaller.
It's Freckle.
Yep, there you go. Freckle posted a link, if anybody's interested in it, called, man, this is a pain in the butt to size. runforsomething.net. And essentially, you can go here, and I've heard about this. They have a podcast, they have bookstores, they have different plans that you can get involved with. And essentially, this site is very good at helping you run. So, for example, the candidate I worked with actually was involved a little bit with this website. So he didn't get it. There's like a process that you have to go through to run for office. And because he ended up accepting the Democratic nomination, he was not able to get as much from them. But essentially, you can sign people up. You can sign up yourself. You can do all sorts of things if you want. And what it'll do is give you the ability to have resources if you want to run. So that's kind of the neat thing about that.
There are some good resources. I've definitely seen some of these things out there, and in the end, anything is better than nothing. I had a conversation with someone today about it at work. It was just like the number of people in the middle who are like Democrats and Republicans who think they hate each other, who have never talked to each other, and realize that they're in their general perspectives are not that far off. Is huge. There's so many of those. If they and they essentially cancel each other out, and that the only people who really make a decision on anything are the people at the crazy edge of everything. And so, like, if more people in the middle really got a general understanding of what's happening and got some good and learned some skepticism, or really look for information as opposed to listening to the outliers and the noisy people, we might get some people who are able to kind of take a look at this QAnon stuff and say, okay, that looks really convenient. Like, that looks like something that really, really, really looks like an easy explanation for that. But when is the easiest explanation usually the best one? It's hard
Yep.
to like the one that makes you feel the best, like the one that the news or whoever is on the televisions. Like, when is them telling you what you want to hear usually the right thing? Sometimes the truth is kind of hard, kind of difficult, and I don't know, this story of like a father getting lost in Q, like, and there's tons of people out there who lost family members. Not like they didn't die, like they lost them because they're no longer there. They're gone, and these like crazy dark rabbit holes of the internet. And it's
Yep.
sad. I mean, I hear stories every once in a while. And try to help them not fall there, and help your kids learn that critical thinking skill. Like, if you can do anything, teach your kids critical thinking right now.
And if you want to learn more about QAnon,
I love it.
um,
I love it. It's so disrespectful.
Cognitive Dissonance did a show where they interviewed um,
Mm.
Mike Rothschild, and they talk about how it became a movement, a cult, conspiracy theory, that type of thing.
Oh,
Um,
he actually does a brilliant deep dive and goes even further into the backstory and the origins of QAnon. Actually, everything you were saying about 4chan there, he did talk about in the episode, which was fantastic. So if you're a fan of Cognitive Dissonance and you haven't heard it yet, catch the hell up because that's an amazing episode. A lot of information.
I found it. The podcast that I was also talking about was number 166 from Reply All is the name of the podcast, and they run into some issues, and then that podcast is different now. But that one episode, they talk about the people who might be behind QAnon, and that's where the guy that I mentioned earlier was the in the Philippines hiding stuff. That was the most comprehensive one I've ever heard. So that's a good one there. I'm guessing that the one you guys mentioned also is quite good. So I recommend anything you can, like a good trustworthy source of people who do like real long form journalism. Just give them a shot.
yep. All right. For our next segment, we're going to be talking about the Olympics. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the Olympics in any way, shape, or form. But I thought this article was relevant. A, because it supports trans and non-binary people, and it's about a Canadian. So I kind of thought it was a little bit cool. I figured Buddy doesn't follow the Olympics either, so this would probably be news to him. But Canadian soccer player Quinn becomes the first out trans and non-binary person to win a gold medal. So that's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
Wait,
Um,
is it the kind of trans that bugs conservatives, where it's a male becoming a female, or is it the other direction?
They all
A
bug.
female
Oh,
becoming male.
they
I'd
just
say
don't. They just don't protest one.
Yeah, because like I always think, like, it seems like the conservatives that have a problem with it are usually complaining about a male joining the female team and having a transition in that direction, but they just completely ignore the other direction, which seems, kind of one-sided. So I was just curious. I'm not familiar with this story.
Yeah. So we're gonna bypass that question for now. Because some of me says it's not relevant, right? It is. They are part of the women's soccer team, so that kind of answers your question
Mm-hmm.
there.
Makes sense.
Um,
I'm just curious.
yeah, and essentially, the nice part about this is, they are not the first open transgender or non-binary person to play in the Olympics, but they're the first one to get a gold medal.
Cool.
And I think that's one of the things, like, we don't talk enough about these things, and I hate the Olympics. I'll be honest with you. I've never really liked them. I'm competitive, but not to the point, like, I'm not a sports competitive person, and I find the Olympics kind of a important in it, like a dick measuring contest of ridiculous
Nationalism
sorts.
is also one of those things where, like, why what my this team is this color and has this flag, so I want
Yeah.
them to win over this team that has this color and this flag. I find myself just losing interest.
I after a lot of the bullshit that went on with the trans, or not the trans, the black women who, they had a different swimming cap for their hair because hair for African Americans is, or people who are of African American descent, is different.
There was an
and
issue with that. I wasn't even
there
familiar.
was,
Really?
and there was a black woman who was actually banned because she tested positive for cannabis, but a white woman who owns a cannabis business got a lot of positive arguments, or a lot of positive press. And then there was a lot of the issues where the Norwegian women's, which of their teams was fined for not wearing bikinis.
Yeah, they wore shorts instead of bikinis.
Yeah. And what's awesome is I'm pretty sure Pink offered to pay their fines for them in solidarity, to which I say fucking awesome, because really that's just bullshit. I made a point of boycotting the Olympics for that this year, because I used to kind of dabble a little bit, and then once I got into weightlifting, I would actually make a point of trying to watch the weightlifting events because I thought they were kind of cool. A little terrifying to realize how strong some people are, but also still really cool. But yeah, with all of that, the fact that I really didn't think that this was a good time for them, I thought it was a rather tone deaf time. It should not have happened. They should have just canceled Tokyo 2020 altogether, because we're still not out of COVID. We're dealing with a potential fourth wave here. I'm dealing with enough bullshit in my own province where our government has been intimidated by the terrorists that support them. So basically, the QAnon people, who comprise the ranks of the anti-maskers, have been harassing the people that they supported to get into office, like going to events and shouting at them and protesting them. Hilariously enough, have basically intimidated my province into completely taking back all restrictions. So my province is going backwards. They're talking about cutting nurses' salaries again, which was something they were dabbling for at the beginning of COVID, and then they backed off because they realized that made them look bad. But now it's back on the table. It's with COVID and everything and all of that. I thought it was a really bad time, and I was really unimpressed. And then of course a few events happened that made me stop and go, "Oh, that's cool." And
well, it's hard to not like some of those things. Like, this is a story where it's something that we support, that is nice. It's a nice dopamine hit. We see something that we like and we support, and so like those are cool. And like some of the underdog stories where the little team comes up and has their first ever. There was a first ever Philippine gold medal, if I remember.
Yes, that was actually
weightlifting, right?
That was something that I kind of had put into the notes. I was like, oh, maybe we could talk a little bit about this, because
it's like those little stories are awesome. And then
absolutely.
Then I did ask if the Olympics are still going on.
No, they wrapped up as of yesterday. The Paralympics are starting up in the next few or shortly.
That's cool though.
Yeah, so I think this story was fun in the aspect of, technically speaking, right? This is kind of Canada's first foray, and now Buddy's gonna go into, well, hold on a second, because I heard incentives for medalists by country that Canada is horrible, right?
So in my deep dive in this, I learned that Canada's not actually the worst, but I'm still really disappointed with everything about it, because so when I found out Heidelin Diaz, and the reason why this one crossed my desk, I guess, is she's from the Philippines, and she's the first gold medalist from the Philippines. And in the article that was talking about it, they said that, as part of her victory, she would be awarded, the equivalent of $200,000 US, by the government. She got a call from President Rodrigo Duterte, and she got a house even, and then a couple of other private business owners have given her like a condo and a car, I believe. And she actually works in the military, and she was in Malaysia, I think, for the better part of the year in the lead up to 2020/21. And that was where she had done the bulk of her training, and it was a really impressive victory on her part. I just wanted to highlight that for a second because it's damn impressive. So I kind of tried to math out, the proper conversions for the Americans. So she was in the 55 kilogram weight class. She's 53 kilos herself, or about 160, 170 pounds. She is 4'11", and she won by lifting 200 pounds over her head. In fact, to be a little bit more specific, because I'm a brilliant guy who thinks ahead of these things. Her total is she won by a kilogram, or almost 2.5 pounds, beating out the Chinese Olympian who actually had a world record, but I believe it had an injury beforehand, which kind of hindered her ability. But Heidelin, in this, she won she eked out on her snatch. So that's basically where they throw the weight up over their head and then they squat down and stand up. She topped out at 97 kilograms, or just shy of 200 pounds for that. And then her clean and jerk, which is where they bring the bar to their chest, then they throw it up into the lunge, and then they stand up with 127 kilograms. So her total was 224, and she beat out the second place, the silver medalist, by literally a kilogram. And the third place was 10 kilos below that. So it was literally between the Philippines and China.
Yeah. I saw some pictures that, like, after she won the gold medal, she was just like hanging out with her family and like eating off the floor, like
Oh,
in
that's
like a
very,
tiny
very
little
Filipino.
shack. Like
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like you see like someone who's got a gold medal, and you imagine Michael Phelps, gold and whatever. You got your $1 million Nike contract.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this stuff isn't quite as glorious as some people might expect. Like I would love to see the
Yeah.
women get more respect.
Well, and that was another big thing that happened, that was pointed out in Canada too, is of the, I think, 18, I want to say, or 20 odd medals total, 18 were won by the the women competitors. And yet most of our advertising featured are the men, even though our women were doing basically all of the work. So that was something that was pointed out, and that really actually kind of infuriated me. But now we're deviating a little bit away from what Tanner had introduced my deep dive on. So I didn't know this because I had never thought about it and never thought to look at it. Some countries offer incentives to their Olympic athletes based off of their performance. So for gold, silver, bronze, and there's a list. It's it the best one I found was compiled on Wikipedia. You can go through all of their resources if you want. I did a quick look through, and everything seems to check out. Oh, these are all converted to US dollars, so we have a baseline understanding of how much people will win if they do really well. So the highest paid medalist, or the country that will pay its medalists the highest, is Singapore. Did you guys look at this, or can I ask you to guess how much you think they would get for a gold medal?
No,
It's on the screen, so $737,000. You're supposed to tell me not to bring it up if you didn't want it.
Well, I wasn't. Well, I know that we can't really see because of our new setup, so I wasn't sure if Hanna had it in front of him. So yeah, in Singapore, if you're an athlete who brings home a gold medal, you get $737,000 American. For silver, you'll get
will
369.
change everything.
Oh, incredibly. And then 184,000 for winning bronze. For bronze. And then second is Chinese Taipei. Their gold makes 720,000 American. Hong Kong brings home 642,500 for a gold medal. Thailand 365,000. Indonesia 346,000. Kazakhstan 250,000 for a gold medal. Malaysia
Where is
236,000.
Kazakhstan?
I don't know. It's
I don't
Eastern
either. I've never
Europe.
heard of that.
Kazakhstan. Yeah, it's an
It's
Eastern
Borat
European
for you.
company. Oh God. I'm just googling that shit right now because I'm actually curious. Ninth largest country in the world. It's just above Uzbekistan. It looks, but not many people will know that either. It looks like it's former Soviet Union, basically.
It's a Soviet
Okay.
bloc country.
Which
Most of
yeah,
the stands were part of the Soviet fall apart, and then the few that weren't were part of the British fall apart, and it's just a bunch of white people drawing lines and causing strife everywhere.
okay.
Conclusion.
So and then I'm not going to list out all of the other countries in between. At the
Yeah.
Philippines,
But-
gold medal gets you 200,000 American, essentially. In Russia, a gold medal will get you 61,000 American. So still that's a year's salary, a good year's salary, I think. The United States is 37,500 for a gold medal, and then
But
I
that's
got
the
to
thing.
Canada.
The United States, though, like if you win the gold medal in the United States, the state
Yeah.
perk is when you're getting. It's like I said, Michael Phelps $1 million contracts. Like
Yeah,
if you're a runner and you pull off a gold medal in the United States, you're making your money on your shoes, not on
Usain
your
Bolt.
medal. Well, he's
Yeah,
making, but still.
even still, I'm sure there were Americans who were happy to throw money and bank
Oh
off
yeah.
of his name.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got down to Canada and I was really disappointed. And I have a couple of reasons why this is so disappointing, even though there are actually better countries than Canada that
Well, it's
pay
the summer
nothing.
games, not the winter games.
I think this even translates to the Winter Games.
It's
Canada pays for a gold medal 16,000 American. And part of the reason why this really bothers me is we have, we have a long-standing history of kicking ass in the hockey arena, specifically the Winter Games. We tend to do really, really well. We have a lot of big athletes that don't compete in the Olympics, yet still make millions of dollars a year. While our Olympics for or athletes for Team Canada, they have to raise money to pay for their nutritionists, to pay for their trainers, to pay for their spaces, to basically pay for accommodations, to pay for their food, to pay for everything. This isn't handed to them unless there are sponsorship deals, which, let's face it, for most events, Canadian athletes are not going to get that kind of coverage unless maybe they're Andre DeGrasse. And even still, even after his buddy moment with Usain Bolt in 2016 at Rio, he still isn't going to be, top tier. The only other athletes that I can think of that are, we consider professional that get this slap to the face salary are what we call the Canadian Football League or the feeder league to the NFL that gets its own TV time. Because a lot of like our best players in the CFL do end up inevitably getting scooped up into the NFL. Because let's face it, they barely make 50 to 100,000 a year or a season. That's it. They do not make very much in the Canadian Football League because there's only 9 teams. It sucks because a lot of them have to get other jobs, but it's also probably for the best because it kind of lets them know that there's more to life than foosball.
Keeps them humble. I don't know. I remember
Humble pie.
the independent league baseball that I played in. I got paid $272 a week to play baseball. Like, if you're in the
Wow.
minors, if you're in the little stuff, man, they don't pay you a whole lot of money. But you get to do what you love, so you're willing to throw it down. Like my assumption is the Olympics is the same kind of way. Like, if you're getting to do what you love, and you can keep yourself afloat, like you hear about like women's basketball and stuff, the differences between men's and women's basketball as far as like winning championships and stuff. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. I would love to see
Like
a little bit more equality.
Oh, absolutely. Like I actually have a up close personal story for this. Like my cousin, she moved to Calgary from Prince Edward Island, so from way the hell out east, because she was training for the bobsled team, and I helped her with some of her fundraising by buying tickets and going to events, because that was how they were trying to raise money so they could at least try to qualify. So not only are our athletes training to try to perform at their top, they're trying to earn their own living outside, and then they're trying to raise enough money that they can pay to just get the chance to prove that they're good enough. So if you if you don't or if you can't afford to qualify and you have the best team, you're shit out of luck. And then our country kind of looks bad because we're not putting our best athletes forward. Which that really bothers me because, there's this whole get kids up and get kids moving, yet we don't actually encourage that because we don't really put a lot of effort into these big sports, because a lot of these sports, they have limitations on how involved kids can get, especially poor kids. There might be some Goodwill company that buys up used equipment, gives it to kids, whatever, and then they go and use that as a tax write-off, so they don't end up having to look like they made as much money. And kids are then not being given the chance to go on and become an athlete, even if they're really, really good, unless they can get noticed by the right people right away. And the amount of politics in is just disgusting. I mean, Hollywood's portrayal of that aside, right? So it's just, I find it really disgusting how alienated and how otherizing it can be, and because it's so discriminatory, and it really says, yeah, we don't care about our athletes, we don't care about people who want to make us look good, we just expect them to go ahead and do it because capitalism.
So I have a question for you.
I might have an answer.
It's a little off topic. Does your cousin know Anna Green Gables? I'm sorry. Oh, that was bad.
Oh,
Oh,
no, but that's very apropos. Very apropos. Well done, sir. Well done.
sorry.
Uh,
That's the only thing I
I don't-
know. All I know is that when my sisters were younger, like, so I've seen all of those, right? Like,
right.
those shows were like a staple in my house growing up. And Hannah, if you don't know what I'm saying, you should Google it, and then you should let your daughters watch it with you, because I bet your wife's probably watched it. But my sisters all wanted to go there.
Tiny farm town.
Well, they probably definitely watched it then. They're like, that fits the mantra even more. But like, my sisters always wanted to go there for like graduation. That's what they wanted their graduation present, to go to Prince Edward Island. So like, growing up, like, I was like, I don't know what's so great about this island, but if it were me, these people look like they're having a hell of a time. I would never go there. It's like Canadian Amish people. That's what it reminded me of.
Don't tell my family about that. They will make me drive there, and I won't have to.
You can't drive to
If
an
it
island.
They'll make me wear the
Actually,
hat.
there's a
Google
bridge.
it. They'll make me wear the hat. I can't wear that hat.
All right,
that
I'm
straw
messaging
hat,
Sarah.
like-
I'm messaging your wife after we finish this. I'm gonna be like, hey,
Oh.
Hannah told me not to tell you about this, but here, I heard they have a lot of art up there. So,
I want to
Just so
say,
you know.
I just took a second to go through the chat here. Thank you, Frackle, for that. I had no idea about the issue with the Belarus athlete, but we
dude.
actually, well, my company actually, we were having issues last year because one of the companies that we're affiliated with, we didn't know that they were affiliated with Russia. And so they went dark on us for weeks, and we've got their customers getting pissed at us because they won't get back to us to help us figure out what was going on. And then finally, after about the 23rd pissed off email about, can we get a fucking response? They're like, we apologize for the delay. Unfortunately, we have had to rather hastily move our offices out of Belarus. We're not sure if you're aware of the situation. However, this is a matter of life and death. And we're like, I'm sitting there when I got the message from my coworker, like, yo, we heard from them. And I'm like, I feel like such an asshole. And then one of the people that we've been dealing with finally calmed down. And then a week later, he was back up to, being pissed off again because, well, why can't this get sorted out? And we're like, because people could die. I'm sorry that you decided to gamble with your money and that inconveniences you somehow. The fact that somebody that you can't actually access it, even though you were probably just going to lose it anyways. But, not that I'm that unsympathetic towards people with gambling issues. I just get frustrated that people get pissy over non-consequential amounts of money that they somehow need and are threatening to sue me personally over, because I'm being respectful of the fact that somebody is trying to literally fight for their own life.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, Frackle. That's definitely a huge thing to look at.
Yeah.
All right. So for the last
some horrible things.
Please.
That's
the
a
last
political conversation.
segment,
We could do one segment where we'll actually talk about some of the things that Belarus is doing and Lukashenko, because that guy's like the U.S. just did sanctions on him. Like it's a big deal. So maybe we'll throw that into a segment in the near future.
there you go. Hannah's got a new task. That's what you get to do.
I'm gonna put it on my
Womp
phone right
womp.
now. Ping ping.
All right. The last segment tonight that we're going to talk about is Native American boarding schools in Michigan. This comes from Michiganology, which I have no idea what this site was until I Googled it. But by the way, there is something called Michiganology. And no, it's not another monopoly. And it's not an oglocty or however you say that. It is Albuquerque. Thank you. It is a history site that talks about Indian boarding schools, right? They were created for children in the tribal community, just like Canada. The schools existed throughout the United States as well. There was a lot of them in Michigan, just so y'all know, which I honestly didn't know that. And essentially, in the United States, these schools were created in the 1800s because they wanted to get rid of indigenous people and make them white. So, sounds pretty similar.
Yeah, they're basically, you're primitive peoples.
Where have I heard that before? Wait, kill the Indian and the child.
I know. Well, it just bugs me on the Indian. I love that the Wood TV link that we have here is calling them indigenous. It was like, it always bugs me, this like the Indian thing, but it's like, there's also a joke of like, a white guy is offended by them calling Indians. Like, I know that, but like, it's just the semantics of the whole thing. It's just like,
it's about proper, because really trying to use Indian for both really just only sets up ignorance and really bad jokes.
No, but I didn't know Michigan had its own history there. So this is
it does.
It does surprise me, but it's also terrible.
Yep. They wore uniforms. They had schools hundreds of miles away from their families. Very similar. Children had to speak in the non-native language or the new native language, depending on who you talk to. They had to have specific haircuts, uniforms, attend church, of course, And essentially, there was abuse that happened, right? Yeah. So they claim this is a very complicated story.
The Catholic Church, so.
But to me, this doesn't seem very complicated, right? We abused Native Americans in a different format than we had originally after we murdered a bunch of them.
If I may, for half a second here, anytime anybody tries to say it's a complicated story, take a look at their skin color, because I can almost guarantee you they look a little bit like me right here, pasty white. Because they're just trying to not feel so bad about it, and nobody's asking you to feel bad about it. They're just asking you to acknowledge that it happened. You used this fuck stick. Sorry, I'm gonna go back.
All right, man. Jeez. So,
well, we know Keith has some serious feelings about indigenous people in North America, and this is bringing something outside of Canada. So it probably is even easier for him to yell at it.
Yep. So the Wood TV article that drew me to this discussion was the headline goes, "Children did die here." It's like, I didn't know we had boarding schools for indigenous children. Holy shit. And wait a minute. It happened in Harbor Springs, Michigan, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Those are two big areas. Harbor Springs, Michigan is like this luxurious town where people go to for vacation time, right? It's a hugely white community.
It's a wealthy area.
Yeah.
There's people with money that live there. Like some serious cash money there. They're like Mount Pleasant and some of that other kind of stuff, not so much, but yeah.
Yep. This one is. And I'll be honest, what's disturbing here, right? Again, these are the Catholic Church, right? This is the Catholic Church that's mainlining these things, obviously because they have the wealth that's backed from other areas or countries that have Catholic churches that continue to spread their money around. So
And a
not
history
only
of doing
did the
this
Catholic
to
Church
people they took
molest
over.
children, they killed them too.
Yeah. Yeah, the Catholic Church has had a history of trying to assimilate, and those who couldn't assimilate were just simply disposed of.
I find it interesting how like the white people who try to downplay the atrocity that is by throwing indigenous peoples under the bus. Well, they should be grateful. We just tried to bring them up and make them more civilized. They
That's
also
worse.
forget that it also happened to white people. I mean, just look at Ireland. I'll be brutally honest. I'm kind of amazed that the Irish government has not just looked at them and told them to get the hell out. But that also just kind of tells you how deep its tendrils like to go.
Well, they did bomb each other for
Oh,
years, so
Very true.
there's a bunch of
Now-
conversations there.
The other thing, they had a manual that was created on how to break their spirits. They had a federal slogan called "Kill the Indian and Save the Man." That is a federal slogan that was in America. So I know, Keith, we talked about a lot of atrocity in Canada, but I don't remember in our discussion about a slogan that said to kill anybody, like openly. Like at least Canada was nice about it.
Leave it
The
to
stated
America
the stated
to
purpose
go.
of residential schools was to kill the Indian and the child.
But was that a
Oh, it was.
slogan they led with? They weren't as brazen as Americans
I
are.
believe so, actually.
Oh my god! All right, well,
Hang on. You keep talking, and I'm gonna Google this shit.
all right, I'll hold your beer, Keith. Hold on, I'll hold that beer because you're gonna go find some info that is just gonna make Canada look even stupider, I guess. But that's crazy, right? I did not.
It'll
Again,
make
this is
both
something I
countries
had
look terrible.
no idea. You know,
It's terrible.
I knew we were a racist country, and I knew we performed atrocities, but like that's pretty bad too. So like, it wasn't just like a little bit. It's like white people been so racist that we're masking this. Why is this not taught in school? Why? I mean, especially in Michigan, for Christ's sake, this should be in everybody's history books.
Well, another
this-
connection that Frackle just brought up in the chat, it says in 1978 is when the United States passed the ICWA, which forbids separating natives from their families. So, I mean, this is something that not that long ago took place. So, if anyone has any questions or thinks they know something else, obviously do a fact check on that. But because I'm not familiar with the ICWA, but if this is something that if it took that long for the United States to say, actually, no, you can't separate Native American children from their families, that's a bit late, in my opinion. I think we kind of sat on that. Although we're technically doing that because if you think about the Native American people from Central America who are currently coming here, we're kind of doing that now. So it doesn't surprise me in the end because America gonna America. Wilsonian expansion is a pretty gross thing, and everyone who's interested in that should take a look at some of the Noam Chomsky's work. But unfortunately, this is just something that's inside Michigan that I was completely unaware of, and this made me uncomfortable completely.
I'm not fine. Damn.
right,
yeah, I'm not
so don't
fine
come back-
that was.
Horrible.
Well, it
Sorry,
gets
I was
worse.
quoting Can You? So
It gets worse. This article goes on to describe that there was orgies happening with children in the basement of these schools. That's crazy. That's even worse, right? And
Christopher Hitchens did say that in the British parochial schools, he thought it, and in reality, it was the children in the minority were the children who were not molested. And it doesn't in any way, shape, or form surprise me that the churches and that the religious schools and the people who were essentially given completely unrestrained and unregulated children would do something like this. I don't know why they would, as far as like I would never do that, but like I don't understand where the draw is for people who have those kinds of tendencies and having some kind of connection to religious organizations. But this is just more evidence that points to something that's wrong, and I don't know. It just seems like that's a minority situation there, where it's just like the few people who made it through may have been in the minority that were never actually accosted, which is insane.
Oh, okay. So the phrase "kill the Indian and the child" is been used to describe the intentions and the goals of the residential school system in Canada. So I
But only
withdraw.
America went to 11. We went to full 11 and actually said like, no,
Well,
that's the rules. That's what we're
what's
gonna do.
funny is that according to a Maclean's article, the phrase "kill the Indian and the child" was wrongly attributed to a different guy than the one who said it. So it looks like it did originate from the America. So
There you go. That's crazy though. So on a positive note, or I guess as positive as we can get, the tribes in America are actually now starting to call for action to look at burial sites in the U.S. And
Oh man,
I hope to
that's gonna be
God,
so bad.
I don't care. I hope to God that they start digging these things up and start finding these sites. There needs to be a call to arms for some of these type of things. My quick save tonight is going to kind of talk a little bit. I got a little bit longer quick save tonight, just so everybody knows. Mine is not like a 5-second quick
I'm
save.
I'm 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 feeling some Burzum vibes. I'm feeling some church burning vibes. I'm
Yeah,
not
and
entirely
I
certain.
understood that reference.
Yeah, there you go. So like that's one of the things I think of like when I think of Canada and like their response was like real. Like it wasn't like to push it under the rug. And I applaud them. If this kind of thing happens in the U.S. and it's found to be as prolific and prevalent as it was in Canada, which I don't doubt in a minute that it isn't, because America always goes to 11. I don't think
America.
I honestly don't think the U.S. would react the same way Canada did. I hope they do, but I don't think they would. I honestly think they would be like, no, 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 that's okay. Like I think MAGA country would be like, yeah, that's fine. I really do.
One my kids.
Yep. And WTV8 has asked for more evidence to prove that these schools don't have mass graves, and the Catholic churches are refusing essentially to give out information on it. I don't know.
No
So
Catholic church gonna let you dig their backyard up.
Yeah.
None of them will.
None of them. Well, we talked about this a little bit, right? And I think one of the big things that really needs to happen is that we need this. We need to start rioting again. This is an atrocity that is not something that we just need to go quietly into the night and let it rain. We need to start bringing this to light, because to me, based on what we continue to see with the fact that we don't want to pay reparations for slavery, we don't want to deal with this internalized racism that our government has. We don't want to deal with this ineffective government. This tells me we need to move closer and closer and closer to some sort of an anarchy, some sort of an actual revolution. Like, this is not a Bernie Sanders revolution I'm talking about. And I'm talking about, let's destabilize this government. Let's start taking back what has been stolen from people for so long. Let's unstabilize the markets. Let's figure out a way to create some sort of hell. And it's funny because we're just this little show.
Like, if we could destabilize the stuff at the top, but protect the people at the bottom who lose first. That's the one thing for me. It's like,
but I think a
run the
coordinated
economy
attack,
to the
Hanna,
polls, and I would love
you
to see
have
that.
to do a coordinated attack to basically essentially mobilize in each of the different areas. So the idea would be, and I guess I shouldn't give the whole plan away, right? But you know,
All right,
this
well,
is
if that's your quick save,
communist
we'll-
QAnon.
later.
But essentially,
Oh, no.
God.
we have to go in and
Coming
secure the
on.
food sources. There you go. You have to secure the food sources and start redistributing that in mass
So you need
effect.
to go to the naked. You need to go to the naked communes that I stayed at my Airbnb. Yeah, like we need to get the people that are full on doing like legitimate, real food and like natural resources, so like we don't have to depend on like any kind of major economic state or whatever.
Yeah, but Anyway, the last thing for this topic, and we'll go on to our quick saves here, because my quick save works very closely with this one. But essentially, if you listen to Michigan radio, which I do, it's a thing. I don't know. I love Michigan radio, so hopefully Hanna still can listen to it even in his Ohioan life. But there was a
NPR Michigan still shows up in my NPR One app. So
awesome. There is the legacy of Michigan's native boarded schools and how tribes are reclaiming what was lost. And essentially, this was a 20 or 30-minute discussion, about how they find the history, how they go through the history, and what First Nations children inside of the U.S. are doing. So it's very similar to what we talked about a couple weeks ago with the Canada segment. They're just now doing this in the United States, and Michigan is not the only state that has these issues, right? That's we're not the only state that has these issues. But this is a very if you have not listened to this one, this is actually really, 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 really good segment that they released. Now, moving on to our quick saves for the night.
Actually, sorry, I just want to half a second here. Just because you mentioned the Canadian unmarked graves. I just did a quick look, and as of yesterday, overall, over 1,400 unmarked graves have been uncovered. With other investigations underway, we just haven't really been hearing a lot about it because it made news, and now that it riled people up, we're moving on. Olympics are done.
That kind of.
And now we're talking about the smoke in Calgary.
Old news.
Yeah.
Except for the families who lost family members and aunts and uncles and grandparents who would have been part of it.
Yeah, which is, 1,400. That's pretty high. It was only at 750 or 800 or something like that.
It was just shy of 1,000. It was forecast to get up there because they had a few that they were waiting to confirm the sites. But yeah, it was, as of yesterday, it's been officially bumped up over 1,400.
So if there's 1,000 of those schools, in Canada, that means 14 children died in every one of them.
Yeah.
So that's a mathematical reference for people who are uncomfortable with that.
But I don't even think that there were that many residential schools, to be honest.
That's what I mean.
Which makes it worse.
We're looking at more per capita. It's gross and it's uncomfortable, and so yeah, I don't know. I just I wish these numbers were smaller, and I wish people would be a little bit more uncomfortable with it. But give it 2 weeks, and people won't even remember it, because that's the nature of our dopamine-riddled society nowadays. It's just everything is flash and rage, and then move on to the next topic. And the poor people who lost members and family members and stuff like that, COVID and religious travesty and all those kinds of things, like those people are there trying to pick up the pieces when they learn about something like that. And I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm living in a world where I've never been directly affected with it, but it's like someone who loses someone to drunk driving or whatever, and then they spend the rest of their life fighting against people who drive drunk and fighting against those kinds of things. Like when it happens to you, then it becomes a major issue. Well, unfortunately, not too many people will be affected by these kinds of things, but these are important things that our society needs to take a look at.
Exactly. So for my quick save this week, there is a Hulu show by, and I'm probably going to butcher her name, Padme
Lakshmi. She is the best. Oh my God.
Yep. And I figured, Hanna, you would like this because of Anthony Bourdain. It's very similar style, except for she's more direct.
Yeah, all of her stuff that is like the food stuff that she does, and like the stories and things, like she's actually even better than he was. Like, she really is. Her show is amazing, and her cooking history is so awesome. This is a good pick, dude. Straight up.
And I've actually this is what when I have to do presentations and things like that, and I have to do boring work at work, and I don't have meetings. Like today, I had 2 meetings all day. I could just put this on. I've actually gotten through this already one time, and I'm on my second playthrough. Some of it's for the the history side of it, and the other portion of it is for the food side of it, because I'm a foodie, I'm a foodie at heart. And it's like when they talk about, pad thai and how pad thai is actually not really a traditional dish in Thailand, but everybody likes it. And they go through, she uses this as a platform. And the reason I like this show so much, and this, if my wife were here, she would just she'd be like, I told you so. Because sometimes you can't win everything with beating somebody with a bludgeon stick and screaming. I mean, I'm talking about anarchy 3 minutes ago, and now we're talking about how you can tell through this show how angry she is about how immigrants have been treated in America. Aggressively angry about it. And they talk about how the food culture, and here's a great example. And this is, people were giving her a lot of crap online. Her first episode, Burritos at the Border, and at the very end, she meets with this guy who's in El Paso, right? And this guy is essentially, he's an immigrant himself who owns this thing, or this restaurant. These women drive over from Mexico every morning to work all day and drive back to Mexico. And this guy openly admitted on the show he supports Trump and would vote for him again. He supports all of the things he doesn't always agree with, like Trump's rhetoric, but he understands and accepts where Trump's going with these things, right? Because all of that is all base level capitalism and how it ruins everybody, no matter whether you're an immigrant and suffered or not. And that guy is definitely not white. That dude is not a white dude at all. He is, I believe, he's a Syrian immigrant. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was a Syrian immigrant. Excuse me. And this show, though, is amazing because it tells different stories of actual immigrants. And they talk about the American hot dog, right? Where does American hot dog come from? And how in reality, America, we are nothing. America is BS. We're just this conglomerate of other people. And all we've tried to do is repress
the good part.
Everything and make it so that we usurp the culture, but make it so it fits our narrative. And I'll be honest, I have never been more disgusted to be an American than ever before. And I'm sure other countries do the same thing too, right? England, obviously, easily. That's a given. But
we took over their mantle. They were doing it better, and now we're better at it.
Then we're like, hey, let's be libertarian, England, and get rid of the king and be libertarian, and then we're going to do this.
Yeah.
What's disgusting is what you learn from this. And I want to highlight one more episode because the other episode where they talk about, because we talked about Native Americans, right? And they have the original Americans. They have an actual episode where they talk about how America has essentially eliminated Native American culture and food culture completely. Because these people, the way that they created, they ate a rodent. I don't think I would do that. I would have a hard time doing this show because I don't think I could eat some of the stuff that they put on this show.
I would.
Good for you. I'm glad that you could do that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
It's just not a... They have they cook antelope. I'll eat that, right? I'll eat that. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't know why, but I'm okay with that. But anyway, they talk about the actual culture, and essentially they used to do Thanksgiving before colonial showed up, and they actually in some of these circles they talk about whether it's called colonial Thanksgiving or decolonial Thanksgiving, right? And they actually prepared a Thanksgiving meal that was what it should have been way before, white people showed up and had poor taste in food and had to have just turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberries with sugar and, all that disgusting stuff.
Well, it's just like what the Christians did with all the pagans, and they took Saturnalia and everything and they absorbed it in there. The Americans just kind of the same thing. They took a whole bunch of stuff that existed, grabbed it, perverted it, and now we have this weird thing where you trace your hand and now it's a turkey.
Yeah. So if you have not watched the show,
my turkey's missing a feather.
Oh my god! If you have not watched the show, you should. And if you're not interested in food, that's okay. You can watch this. And again, where I disagree with her a little bit is that food is not going to bring our nation back from the brink. It's not. I don't agree with that. That to me is just corporate shill, nonsense. What I do agree with though is understanding where the food culture has come from, and I love food. If you could see me, you could easily tell I like food. I'm not a fast food guy. I like real food, even if I don't like eggs at all or rodents. Or steak. I won't eat steak.
I'll
either.
give
I
it a
don't
shot.
give a fuck.
I'll give it a try. If someplace else in the world eats it, I'll give it a try.
That's right. I'm gonna buy you
I
some.
prefer to try it before I know what it is, and then you tell me, and then I can't. I don't have that.
See,
the
I'm the
psychological
same
thing.
way with my wife.
That's-
Like
that's-
other than balut, I'll try pretty much any Filipino dish. One of my favorite dishes is the Filipino equivalent of blood pudding, to the point where my in-laws family, sorry to come into your segment here, my in-laws made it with a duck that I got to pick because the little fucker had been giving me the side eye all day, and they used him for it. It's called the Tagalog.
It's called
The name is
vendetta blood pudding. That's what it is.
dinuguan. Dinuguan is the dish. Yeah, and they make it like with they cook the blood as well as the meat. The duck, it tasted like fried chicken. It was so good. Her one uncle and I polished off a bottle of tequila and ate an entire bowl of that. It was great.
Interesting.
Hmm.
You have my
I will
attention.
try.
If I ever come to BC, we'd definitely give some weird food a try.
I
I'm all for that
honestly,
kind of stuff.
it's I very much am like, don't tell me what it is. Just
Yeah.
let me try it, and then let me
Mhm.
realize that I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a weird person who likes weird food.
I'm an omnivore. Hear me roar.
Well, we had that when I went to there's a tamales restaurant that is essentially in Holland, right? It's not next to me, but it's pretty close to me. And we used to go get menudo there. And I like
There you
menudo.
go.
Like I had menudo, like authentic menudo for some guy I worked with long time ago. And we went there and it was just kind of like, oh, hey, do you want to try this? Sure. And he's like, all right, well, hold on a second though. Do you want to know what's in it?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't recommend telling you. And I was like, I've already had menudo. You don't have to tell me. I know what's in it. He's like, do you know what's in mine? I was like, I don't really care because I know what can go into it. I've already had that before. Is yours spicy? Yes. Okay, that's all I actually care. Do you have like other vegetables so it's not just eating the meat portions?
Liver?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's not how menudo actually works. You wouldn't just put meat portions in broth and eat it. That's disgusting. Oh, well, great. How many tortillas can I get with it? That's all I care. Can I have 7 tortillas? Thank you. And like we had it. We used to go there. Me and my buddy Chase used to go there every Friday because he would only serve it on Friday and Saturday. And we kept trying to explain to him when we came in on Fridays, we were not hungover. We just genuinely thought it was a good dish. Like we actually just enjoyed his recipe.
People that do it right. I
Um,
mean, it's legit.
I'm gonna say, Tanner, if you do end up coming up here to visit, whatever, my mother-in-law will love you to the point where she
there
might
we go.
recognize that even though you're married, she'll try to marry you off to a Filipino girl.
I don't know.
And she'll spend hours with you teaching you all of the ways all of her traditional dishes, how she cooks. They might teach you how to properly cook rice if you don't already know, because there's a right way.
For anyone who doesn't know, like menudo, it's beef stomach. So that's
Yeah, there's some variations to it, but yeah,
yeah,
stomach
and
or liver.
You get liver, some potentially tripe and things of that nature. So like that usually throws the American palate out of the way.
I've
It's
tried
like,
tripe. I don't do tripe.
Yeah, I don't know. You go to a good pho restaurant and just say, which is the one that has all of it in it? And they're like, that one. And you're like, I want that one.
Yeah, and I had that too because the same thing happened is we do have one of those shops like in Grand Rapids on like 36th Street in Eastern there, and like when you go in there, you could definitely like they don't speak very good English, if any English at all, and like they're like, what do you want? And I was like, well, I'll take that number right there, and they're like, no, and I'm like, yes, please, like I'm okay with it, just go ahead, put it all in it for me, man.
There's a place here in Cleveland called Superior Pho, and you get the 10. You get the number 10 pho with the sandwich. They bring you beef it's a beef sandwich that's got the pickles and all kinds of herbs and stuff going on. It's insanely good, and it's sharp, and it's vinegary, and it's amazing. And then they bring you the pho, and it has all the stuff in it, and you don't know what's what, and it's more food than you can possibly eat for like $17, and it's ridiculous. And I usually one day a week, my buddy Sam and I would go to some restaurant, and that's one that we go to pretty commonly. Like, and they just do it all. It's just like one of those things. It's just like the mystery bucket, right?
Yeah,
It's the best.
it
It's
is. I
awesome.
mean, like I'm not super big into fish. I will tell you that ahead of time. Like I have a weird aversion and I hate eggs. But yeah, I'll come to Canada and your mother-in-law can teach me all sorts of things. Like I love, especially if it's,
Your
anything from
mother-in-law
the
can teach
east.
me all sorts of things. That should go on your headstone.
Yeah. Because my mother-in-law
Oh, God.
cooks really good lasagna, like she has good lasagna, but I'm not big into, like, it's funny because the wife and I will argue about this. Like, she asked me what I wanted for dinner the other night, and I was like, I don't know. Can we go get some Thai food? It's like, no. I was like, can we go get some Mexican food? No. Like, don't you ever want to eat like American food? I was like, well, technically those are American food because they're, like it's part of our culture. Well, it's not part of your culture. I know it's not, but like it tastes a lot better than like eating like mashed potatoes and gravy and like other than fried chicken. I will tell you, fried chicken. Oh, the other thing I wanted to highlight, I forgot to tell you about. They have and I'm gonna butcher this, but it's called Gani or something like that. Gani. It's like basically like African. It's like an African tribe that they got brought over due to slavery, right? And it's essentially in Carolina. It's like it's in Carolinas. It's where your Southern style Cajun cooking came from, right? It's amazing.
From
Like
Ghana, Ghanaian,
maybe, yep.
Because like the Cajuns,
GHA.
No, it's
the
got yeast
Cajun
in it.
style.
Oh,
That's
oh,
French.
Geechee, Gula Geechee.
Maybe
Okay.
that's yep, and that might be how you say it. It's Gullah, something like that. The
Yeah,
Gullah way.
I see that.
Geechee Gullah. I don't. Again, that's not my. I apologize. That's just not
that's what it
my
is.
thing.
So
I have
it
a hard
says
time.
Gula is African influences. They developed a Creole language, also called Gula, in a country or in a culture with some African, Bahamian, and Bahan influence. So, like, it seems to be that there is part of the Creole language. So, like, when you hear like Louisiana, and you think of the foods and the things that are happening in the melting pot that is Louisiana, that this is Gula is going to be one of those things. It's it's a major African influence.
Yeah. It's West African food. I actually enjoy African food a little bit. Like I like Indian food better, I found, than I like African food, but it's probably because we're from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and like we only have a few actual authentic style restaurants for the most part. Like they exist, and that like then I kind of wonder is like, I feel like emailing, Panama, like I feel like emailing her and being like, hey, you know what you should do next? Like you should like highlight and let people submit local restaurants and then go highlight all these mini local restaurants all across the United States. Like just take one state and like every episode can be a different state. I don't care if it takes you 7 years to produce this.
Grand Rapids has decent fusion stuff happening in there with the culinary, the Grand Rapids Community College and stuff. But like,
it's not as authentic.
like
there is some
names,
there's a Thai
fusion,
restaurant.
Yeah,
There's a Thai restaurant I go to that is 100% authentic. Like they have first and second generation immigrants cooking there. Like the food is really, it's insane. It's actually, now you mentioned that's what I'm going to go eat on Wednesday because I had not been to that restaurant since COVID hit.
There was a place that I used to go to on 28th Street called Bangkok View, and we went in there, and she just started the place off, and like she was like, "I'm leaving next week or next month, be gone." And we're like, "What are we gonna eat on Tuesdays then?" And she's just like, "I go home. I haven't been home in 10 years." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And she went home for 10 years, for the first time in 10 years to see her family. She'd been in America, making a restaurant, and like. On Tuesday nights, they would do like a 2-for-1 deal, so you get 2 entrees for the price of 1, and they would give you an appetizer. And it's like a meal deal, and like I would give her the price of an extra meal, as the tip because it was like $15 or $17 for 2 meals and like a side. It was stupid cheap, and so like she was super awesome, super friendly. We got along. We would talk every time she came in. She knew us by name. It was just an awesome like support the little guy, and like it doesn't matter where you are. Like go to the little places. Cleveland has like it's a big enough city that it has like Polish town and Asian town and like the names if they make you uncomfortable, that's just what they say. But like there are those kinds of cultures inside the city because it's big enough for it, which is cool because like one of my coworkers is Polish and we go to a place that doesn't exist anymore. It actually closed down. It couldn't survive the pandemic. But like I've never had food like I had at this old lady's Polish restaurant. It was just insane. Everything was like the savoriest, amazingest. It was absolutely stunning. And like it's sad to see that kind of like home cooking old lady and like the weird coffee that she made that was like sweet and super bitter at the same time doesn't make any sense in my head at all. But like supporting that stuff, man, that's awesome. And I think your quick save for Padma Lakshmi, I think she's trying to do that from like a super elevated and like really big place where like it's hard to be like what do they say? It's like when you're a band or whatever, and you go mainstream, right? Like they're like you're not real anymore. Like she's trying to be real, even though she's mainstream, and I got to give her credit because the stuff that I have seen her do, it's pretty legit. Like her heart's in the right place, and so like I highly recommend everything about her show.
Yeah. With that being said, Keith's quick save is the book we talked about a little bit ago.
Yeah, I thought it was really apropos. I wasn't sure we were going to discuss the cognitive dissonance episode, because I had kind of left a note in there saying, "Hey, just a heads up." Uh, but yeah, so the author Mike Rothschild, he wrote a book called "The Storm Is Upon Us." The subtitle being "How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy of Everything," and it's actually incredibly fascinating. I've actually sent a note about it to Liam because I thought it might be right up his alley with mythology and everything, and seeing how prevalent QAnon has become, because Q does seem to get its fingers into every single conspiracy theory, even though it's very
Standalone
easily
complex, man.
debunked. Even though it's very easily debunked at the end of the day, it's still somehow being pushed. And I think one of the better ways for us to kind of understand how we can fight back against this and any other bad ideas, it helps us to understand, how it all got there. Like what other issues happened, what other things went into it to get us to where we are now, to get it to the point where being it's being taken seriously on the Senate floor. Politicians who believe this are getting in, and I mean, as Frackle pointed out again, we have a lot of QAnon believing support, or maybe it was the from the link Frackle provided that there was a link to the article about how many QAnon senators there are, or QAnon politicians are being elected because nobody else is running, and the simple fact of the matter is that these are very bad, and I hate to say it, but they're very dangerous ideas that are being batted around because they're done so without a hint of skepticism or irony. And to even further the point is, it's not even being bought up by stupid people. Like there are not everybody who follows Q is stupid, and that's the problem. That not that we want to give any benefit to Shermer because he's made a disgrace of himself, but he did put it out there that the reason why smart people believe bad ideas is because they're good at defending them, which, I mean, you hear that and you kind of think of the irony given the author, but it's important for us to understand how we can handle it and what we need to do to prevent further issues like this from cropping up. I mean, it was kind of a throwaway line, but the movie Interstellar, which from a science point of view actually did a fairly decent job. One thing that gutted me was when they talked about how in that particular universe at that time they believed that the original moon landing was a hoax. And I don't want to live in a world where that's kind of the mainstream idea, because it wasn't a hoax. We were there. I mean, not me personally. My dad was like 6
you were
years
not
old,
there.
but
You weren't there.
but we can prove that we were there. So we need to know how we can combat these bad ideas and what needs to be done to prevent worse ideas from taking hold. Trump is not the problem. He is a symptom of the problem that just brought it to the surface.
All right. So for Hannah's quick
Spiegel.
save,
Yeah.
we have why would you wear a mask mandate?
Yeah. So kind of tying into Keith's perspective here, with or without religion, good people behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion. That also kind of connects to the mask mandate here. So browsing through Reddit, so the link that I have on here, you got to scroll down a little bit to get to it, and you'll see it's kind of highlighted in a golden yellow glow. But this guy is a person who regularly goes through scholarly articles, and we all love to say, "Do your research," right? So when people do the research, they go to Google and they ask Google, what is my thing? Or any other search engine you use. The DuckDuckGo is the thing that, like, you're not looking at what you're looking at. We promise we won't tell anyone. In the end, whatever your researching tool is, you get data back. It's a connection tool. It's not essentially a tool that takes a look at the information that it's giving you. It's just giving you as much information as it can. It's up to you to figure out what's good. And in order to figure out what's good, you need to be skeptical. And this guy gives a really cool explanation for cloth masks and for the N95 mask and why this is what it is and what you should do. And well, the CDC page has information. The Mayo Clinic has this information. The BMJ has more technical. Like, what it does is it breaks down a process for, hey, I'm uncomfortable with the mask mandate. Why is this okay? And this guy looks at scholarly articles and he looks at information and he specifically understands what's going on here. But what he does is he shows you the process of what he would, as someone who understands those things, that makes it understandable for someone who may not be comfortable with it. So, like, he's looking at, basically he's explaining some things. Like, he sent, I see a preprint. Well, most people don't know what a preprint is. As the internet has allowed scientific journals and scientific papers to be released, a preprint is essentially you get to put your whole paper out there for everyone. We can all read it. But guess what? It hasn't been peer reviewed yet. So I'm publishing my fancy peer reviewed paper that hasn't been peer reviewed yet on this scientific site with all of these things. There's an issue here, right? We're jumping the gun. Too much information too quickly. They're not getting peer reviewed. Everything's dopamine influx. We need it now. We need it now. Sugar, sugar, sugar. And so this guy is showing these things like, hey, if you're looking at this, if this is a preprint, you should look at it. Find out if it is a preprint. Has this been peer reviewed yet? Is this a resource that you can trust? Is 60% good? I don't know. We should take a look at it. Before we leave, we should look at some of the other resources that they link in here. Like, this is a really nice, clean thing for you to read along. It's only, I don't know, I guess about 500 words. It only takes a few minutes to read through. And it'll just give you the insight for someone who regularly critically looks at scientific publishing and says, I don't think that's legitimate. And so, like, this is a tool that I've used multiple times in the last couple of months as a kind of a general way of looking at stuff. Like, I'm always looking for new ways and better ways to kind of filter the information that I get, because it's kind of important. And I read this one, I was just like, well, of course, face mask. And so one of the last things, like, before we leave, let's revisit the source. The title page shows that this work was done by a group called FaceMaskResearch.com. It just sounds fake. When he looked at it, he found the information they had. This is a group working from University of Cambridge. And the About Us page showed that they are engineers of varying career stages and have done a lot of work in this space. That's the research that we're talking about here. Who is telling you this story, and are they a reliable source? It takes more than just where it's coming from. So, like, if you want to be someone who's going to say, do the research, you need to learn how to do it. And this is a great short little Cliff's Notes version on how to get started if you don't already have a process that you usually follow.
Fair enough. All right. With that being said, thank you all for joining us tonight. We are gonna tentatively be back next week. I'm on vacation, but it kind of depends on when I leave, whether we'll be back next week or the week after. So I apologize. I'll try to pull a clip show together or something like that, that we can air next week, but I can't guarantee because I think I'll be traveling for vacation next week. So, with that being said, we'll be back the week after that with another new Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all and have a good night.